Dear friends, welcome to the next session for software engineering and designing concepts. So in our previous session, we were discussing about various relationships that might be existing between two different classes. So in today's session, we will be beginning and we will be continuing with the remaining part of the relationships, and we will be beginning with UML concepts. So the next relationship which might exist between two different classes is an aggregation type of a relationship, and it represents a whole part relationship. Basically, it is represented by a diamond symbol at the composite end. So when you will be looking at two different classes, there has to be one whole class and one should be a part class. So when we are talking about representing this whole part relationship, essentially we make use of a diamond symbol, and this diamond symbol will be towards the composite end. However, the relationship between two classes or of a particular class cannot be recursive or cannot have a self loop within itself. It is not symmetric and it can be transitive. So let us look at the diagrammatic representation of the aggregation relationship. So there are three different classes: document, paragraph and line. So basically these three uh, different classes will be a collection of each other. For example, a document is basically a collection of paragraphs. A paragraph is again a collection of lines. We can also consider this that a document is an aggregation of paragraphs and paragraphs are aggregation of lines. So when we are talking about this, the composite end between document and paragraph becomes the document, and between paragraph and line becomes the paragraph. So whenever we are representing that document is an aggregation of paragraph, we will represent the composite end with a hollow diamond. Now we also have to associate multiplicity along with this relationship, and the multiplicity here is shown as 1 is to many. That means one document is capable of having many paragraphs at one instance of time. Similarly, one paragraph might have many lines in one instance of time. So when we look at aggregation, it is basically that the document is the whole and the paragraph is the part, and this relationship is known as whole part relationship. So an aggregate object contains other objects, and aggregation limited to tree hierarchy. No, there is no circular inclusion relation. As already discussed, we do not have any self loop within itself. For example, if we are considering this itself, the document cannot have a representation something like this. No, it cannot have. However, it can have a relationship with some other objects or with some other classes in particular. The next we will talk about composition relationship. Now composition relationship is a more stronger form of aggregation relationship where the life of item is same as the order. That means, for example, if we are considering the document and paragraph, now this document we can consider as a composition of the paragraph, and the document will exist only if there are sufficient number of paragraphs associated. Similarly, if we are taking a bill, let us consider a bill. Now a bill will be there only if there are orders associated with that particular bill. It might be one order or it might be many orders, but there should be sufficient number of orders, at least one order so that the bill should exist. If there are no orders, the bill will cease to exist. Similarly, here in document, if there are no paragraphs, the document will cease to exist, which means that it is a more stronger type of a relationship. Now, the composition relationship is basically represented using this filled arrow. So the only difference between aggregation and composition is that if the part relationship does not exist, the whole relationship will also not exist. However, in aggregation, if the part relationship does not exist, the whole part might still be existing. So that is the main difference. However, we will look at it into more detail. So when we are looking at aggregation and composition, in composition, composite and components have the same life. That means whatever we have in our whole part and the part component, so both of them has to coexist in order to prove that the relationship is sustainable. However, in aggregation, the lifelines are different. That means the part component can still be there for longer period of time or shorter period of time, but it is not directing the lifetime of your whole component. So consider an order object. The aggregation is if order items can be changed or deleted after placing the order. However, in composition you cannot do it. If they are changed or deleted after placing the order, the items also will cease to exist, or in case of a bill, the bill will be not there. So aggregation and composition is very important from the point of showing or displaying whether a particular relationship will cease to exist if even if its one part is deleted or omitted. The next we will talk about what are the advantages of object oriented development. So basically the first one is we can reuse and make repeated and multiple uses of the code and design. It will increase the productivity because everything will be witnessed or everything will be checked from the perspective of an object and its lifetime. So basically when we are individually segregating it into real-time objects, then it becomes easier for any developer to handle those objects and its attributes and functionalities in a more precise and productive manner. The third is ease of testing and maintenance. Since it is already isolated into different objects, so the testing becomes easier. Better understandability because there are various relationships existing between them, so it gives a better view of the entire system. It has an elegant design, and most importantly, they are loosely coupled and highly cohesive in nature, so which is very essential for solving large problems. Moreover, initially the object oriented development might look little expensive or it might incur higher cost, but after completion of some projects, reduction in cost becomes possible because we can reuse the design and codes. Also, we have well established object oriented methodology and environment which are already tested and proven for better productivity. So projects can be managed with 20% to 50% of traditional cost of development. So after a project is developed, so it can be managed and maintained with just half of its development cost. However, in our earlier sessions, we have seen that while maintaining a particular project in function oriented design, it takes around similar expense or it incurs around similar cost in order to develop or in order to maintain that particular project. But in case of object oriented development, it just invest only 50% of the initial cost. So basically this object oriented development is modeled using unified modeling language, which is a widely accepted standard. It is not system design or development methodology, but it is used to document the object oriented analysis and design results. And most importantly, it is independent of any specific design methodology. So we do not have to strictly adhere to any of the methodologies for designing any project. It is up to us which one we need to choose at what point of time, and most importantly, the designs will never go wrong. So let us talk about a little bit of origin regarding the UML. So it was in 1980s and early 1990s that various different software development houses were using different notations. So basically, depending on these notations, methodologies evolved, and somewhere around 1990s, this large number of object oriented modeling notations were standardized, because if many firms are using different methodologies, it is difficult for the production to implement or the developers to take a guidance as to how or which particular methodology to use. So there was a strict need for standardization, and in 1990s this was standardized. And in order to standardize this UML, the researchers or the stakeholders depended principally on OMT, which was defined by Rambagh in 1991, Bush's methodology, which was defined by Bush in 1991, OOSE, Object Oriented Software Engineering, which was developed by Jacobson in 1992, Odell's methodology in 1992, Schleyer and Meller model, which was developed by Schleyer in 1992. So all these different standards were defined by different scientists who were working in this area, and the standardization was done from 1990 onwards. Basically, this standardization has to be accepted by or adopted by some standard organization. In case of UML, it was adopted by Object Management Group, which is OMG, in 1997. It is basically an association of industries, and it promotes consensus notations and techniques which are widely used and agreed upon. However, it is also used for software development as well as hardware development. So for example, like car manufacturing units, etc. So this UML is also used not only for software but also for hardware development. So it is a very powerful modeling language from the perspective of design. So basically, this UML diagrams can be categorized into 9 different diagrams which are used to capture different views of a system. When we are talking about views, it essentially provides different perspectives of the software system. So whenever we are using a software system, it is not essentially from the perspective of the developer or the perspective of the customer or the perspective of the client that we have to perceive it or look at it. There are several other environmental issues, engineering approaches associated with it, which are termed as views. So basically, these diagrams are refined to get the actual implementation of the system based on various views. So when we are talking about UML model views, there are 5 different types of views or 5 different perspectives from which you can view a particular modeling language or a particular design: the user's view, the structural view, behavioral view, implementation view, environmental view. User's view essentially depicts the use case diagram and basically the actions the user is capable of doing with the particular product or project. Structural view will be representing the structure which generally do not changes. Behavioral defines various functionalities that the system is capable of doing. Implementation again represents the implementation factors and associations related to it. And environmental view essentially represents the various environment in which it can work. So representing this in a diagrammatic form, as already discussed in the previous slide, user's view will deal with the use case diagram, where it will show the interactions between various users and the system or different functionalities provided by the system. Behavioral view has the sequence diagram, collaboration diagram, state chart diagram, and activity diagram. So all these diagram represents the behavior. Environmental view essentially represents the deployment diagram and the environment in which it is deployed. Implementation view will be representing the component diagram, where each of the component will be implemented and checked and rechecked for further changes until it can be converted into a program. Structural view again represents class diagram and object diagram, where the structure does not change, but we can go on scaling up or scaling down the structure. So this is the UML diagram representation, and we will be looking at each of the diagrams in detail. So this is all for today's session. Thank you.